Sí, sí, lo único malo es que va más tarde es el ruido.
Ya.
Me queda aquí contigo directamente la presentación. No, me hago una hora, paso palabra a buscar y ya me presento yo. Ya me presento yo. I let you know if I start. Es que encima la otra chica que tenemos, que iba a estar haciendo esto, justo se tenía que ir de urgencia con su perro. Y digo,
ahora quién hará eso. Claro. Si no le enviaré su WhatsApp por la foto y se encargado.
Sí, claro, la idea era eso, tenemos un grupo de la idea de
2 minutos.
Sí, sí. La gente de la música. Como pases justo por el medio del proyector, te meten un pedazo.
Pero voy a... Mira, ¿encender?
Yo creo que está encendido.
No, ahora sí.
Ah.
¿Está? Vamos a empezar. ¿Yes? ¿Sí? Okay, hello? If it's okay, we start sharp on time. Okay?
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Wait, sorry. If you don't mind, we will not wear the mask. So, thank you very much for being here this afternoon. We are really happy that we got such a crowded audience. We were kind of scared because of the rain, because of the football. So I'm happy you made it. And well, we will be introducing some, I hope, interesting chats for you. By the way, I'm Xavier Morejon. I'm responsible of the MediaMarkt TechHUB. And we do this event together with Flutter Spain community. And I give you Oscar, who will say some words.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. So for the ones that don't know me, I'm Oscar Martin. I'm organizer of Flutter Spain, but also Flutter Madrid. For us, this is like an incredible time because, 2 years ago, it was our last event, like in person. So many of you, maybe you know me by, I don't know, streamings and so on, but not in person. And this is like really, really, really amazing for us. So yeah, just thanks to MediaMarkt for give us this incredible opportunity for create this awesome atmosphere here. Like, I don't know how many people we are today, but at least I'm pretty confident, like we are more than expected, at least for in my case. And yeah, so basically, thanks. Just enjoy the event. We are also here. We have Jaime, so in case you have any question about the community, just feel free to ask. We have on the chat and on Twitter, we have our colleague Anna. So yeah, just feel free. Like if you are interested in create an event or whatever, just don't hesitate to contact. And yeah, just enjoy the time. Thank you.
Gracias. Okay, so you are here to listen about Flutter, so we are not going to extend very much with the preliminaries. The agenda, our idea, we have 3 topics with 3 speakers. All of them, they work at MediaMarkt. They will introduce themselves. After that, we will make the event closer. We have some giveaways that you can see there. Also for the online audience, because we are streaming this event online. At the end of the week, we are going to share a link with the video. So if you miss something, you want to re-look at it, you will have the opportunity to look at the video. Okay? And at the very, very end, we will have a networking beers and pizza here. I hope you can stay so we can chat a little bit in person and get to know each other. Okay? So we start right away with Mayank. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. Thank you guys for being here, and I would like to welcome you for the Barcelona meetup for Flutter. My name is Mayank Rai, and I'm a Flutter developer in MediaMarkt. I've been doing Android development for the last 4 years, and I recently started doing Flutter. So I would like to thank you guys again, and let's start. So the topic for the meetup is today's modularization. Well, what it basically means is how to structure your app if your app grows bigger, and how to maintain it and test it, or make it a way which is extendable and easy to maintain, and basically also to grow the app. So what happens? So we start with an idea for an app, we code it, we keep adding features gradually, and over time we see we have a huge code base. This happened to us also, and we start to see few problems when this kind of scenario happening. It's very common. The first one is team distribution. So let's say we are like 20 developers after a while, and our code is big, and we just don't know how to distribute our team. We don't know how to maintain the code because the code is so intertangled with each other, and it gets complicated to commune through the code and also to traverse. The structure gets rigid because, as I said, it becomes interlocked. The process of release becomes slow because even you touch a small part of the app, it's so intertangled that you have to test all the part of the app because maybe something might have broken or side effect have been introduced. And the last part is the new onboarding. So it also affects the new joiners, so because they see the code and then it's overwhelming for the first overview of a code. So that's why we split our code into small chunks, which are supposed to be plug and play based, which are supposed to be interdependent and independent, and also easy to test and maintain. So what to do if that happens? And it happens very common. It's very common to see such code. What we do is we distribute our app into small modules, we decouple them, and we try to, ideal goal is to make it a plug and play app where you just put some features in, it works. If you don't like it, you can take it out without affecting your release cycle and the app structure. Now, the important point is, so if you are coming from Android development, so you might have already heard of dynamic features. It's very easy to do modularization in Android, but it's not a supported solution, or there's nothing in general from Flutter which say how to distribute your app or even supports a multi-modular apps. So it's a very new topic, and let's hope that Flutter will come up with some way to make the modularization easy, maybe introduce some library or some other way. But for the moment, what we can do, we have 3 approaches. So these approaches are not related to Flutter. You can apply it in Android, you can apply it in iOS, you can apply it in any mobile environment. So how we distribute our app? We can go for a layer-based approach, feature-based approach, or a hybrid approach. A layer-based approach means that you define a layer in your app which can be independent and easy to test. A feature-based approach is you distribute your app based on features. Let's say you have e-commerce, you say you have a basket team, and then at the same time you have a product detail team. And the third way is the hybrid approach, which is like combining the both of them. So what happened in a layer modularization? So here's one example. You can define layer, it's up to you. One of the ways defining them, let's say by clean architecture, you can define a domain layer which works only with the domain logic. You have data layer, it defines how the data will be created. And then you can have multiple layers. You can have a theme and components layer, which works with theming, and you can have much more. What we do here, that each layer is independent in a sense. Let's say we are using a remote setup for ABC library, and tomorrow we have a business requirement that we need some other library. It should be such a plug and play that we can remote that whole part and introduce the new without affecting the rest of the app. So when you test, you know that you have to test this part. And also you write the test cases for that. So it's like a black box for the main module, and it's a plug and play feature again. The second approach is a feature-based approach. As I said, you can have your own feature, you make a module out of it, and then you can apply whatever logic you have in the feature, and then you connect these feature to make the whole app. So let's say we introduce a new feature for picking up goods from store for a while because there's corona or whatever reason we don't want people to enter. We introduce this feature, but let's say after a while we don't want this feature, so we take it out without affecting the whole code. We just take out that module and it works out of box. Now what happened with these techniques? So if you compare, layer approach is very simple. It's easy to test because you write all your test scenarios for that layer. You can maintain clean architecture. You can decouple these layers so that domain is not dependent on data, data is not dependent on your app, but it's other way around. They are all independent features or independent layer. The problem with this approach is team distribution. I mean, there's no point of distributing a team which does take care of, let's say, database, because all the features will touching your database, and then in the end, you have to test everything. So team distribution becomes difficult. It doesn't serve its purpose for a very big app. The feature-based approach gives you dynamic features. You can take it out, take it in. Testable, you work on some feature, you just know that I worked on this module, I just test this part, not whole app. You make the team distribution and ownership easier. You define teams that this team will work with this feature, the other team will work with this feature. They have ownership of that feature. It's easy to maintain. The release cycle is fast because we test it, because each module is easier and testable because it's small, but it gives the complexity if the modules are interdependent, and it's basically more complex than distributing your app unlike the layer approach. So we come with a hybrid module. It's nothing but combining the both approaches. You still have different layers, but you also add your features as a different layer. So one of the example is I have created a small demo app where you can go and refer to it. And I'll just quickly go through the. So here what we do is that I have a small app where I have distributed the app in a hybrid layer. We have certain features, but also we have different layers. And one of the places is this, where I know visibility is not good, but what has happened that it's a small app where I have taken all the domain logic in a layer, which is a layer, a database layer. Then I have all the features, like if this app is an air pollution app, and there are two features, like getting the history of air pollution, and then at the same time seeing the air pollution. And then you have features, you have layers, and you can test or work only on a particular layer if you want to make any changes, and that makes it easier to work with the app. Now, what happened? What are the challenges? Let's say it's all theory. It sounds good that you have separated, but is it easier in Flutter? So as I said, that Flutter does not give inbuilt solution for doing the modularization, or it's not well supported at the moment. And when you do your app modularize, you see few problems. Localization, you have to come up with a, let's say you have 3 features, you have to come up with a way for localizing, and that for that we already have a pub dependent pub spec package which is called multi-localization. You get a version management problem. So what happens when you create different features? Let's say one feature use some package ABC, another feature also use that package for some work, and you have to maintain it manually. Let's say if you update in one place, you have to make sure that it's updated in everywhere. So this is a bit of a manual work. So version management of the dependency gets tedious. Navigation is again tedious process. Let's say you have 2 features which goes to certain screens, and you have to maintain that logic of central navigation, that it all comes down to your app, and then your app decided how to navigate. So it's again a challenging part of the modularization. Dependency injection is the same. You have to define the in the modules of injection logic for each module. You have to find your dependency and then how to converge them into your main app. Common plugins decentralized. So if you have some plugin which is being used in each feature, you have to copy paste that whole plugin. And the plugin has like Android and iOS part, so it makes your app chunky or bigger. The 6th part is the package management. So let's say you have defined all these packages and modules. Now you want to run, let's say it's in your CI/CD pipeline. You want to run all of them having their test pass, all the criterias should go in the respected manner as you expect. And this is again a challenging, but luckily we have something called Melos. It's again PubSpec library which you can use for the package management. And the last problem is the circular dependency. So this is something to be very careful. And what happens, let's say one module depends on another module for something, and at the same time that module depends on the first module. So what happens, you have a circular dependency. So you should be very careful when you define a module that it should be independent and it should not introduce a circular dependency. Now, this was all theory, that how we can do, we saw what is the challenges, how we can fix it, but what are we doing in a MediaMarkt? So we have also started, because we have a big app and we have started the modularization, and the first part of it, we have created a layer-based separation, and that's called component gallery. We have separated out whole theme of our app into in a package, which manages the package, which can change the theme, which has all the widgets and components which we need for our app. So whenever, let's say, we have to introduce something in the app, we don't create a widget in the app. We go in the component library, we check, okay, something is there, we take it from there, and the developer who's working on the feature, let's say, doesn't need to know how the widget is going to work. Or let's say we have 5 design system, he doesn't need to know what logic is used behind that particular widget, because it's already worked in the separate package. And that's how we take out the separation of concern from the main app, and the main app focus more on the screen feature rather than how things are built behind. And just to give you an overview, this is the component gallery we have. We have created a web page for all the components, and here all the things which you use in the app are here for display, which we use in our main app without touching. So we don't care. We have like multiple versions, how it is taken care in dark mode, light mode, how it's going to be in different design system. We don't care. We just know that we want a button or an app bar, and it just goes there. So this is how we separate out a feature or a logic from the main app and make it skinnier, so that the person who's working doesn't have to work on this part. He just focus on the part which he's supposed to do. So this brings the ownership and the team distribution. And that is all. So if you guys have any questions, it's the time. All right, then if there's none, then I will hand over to Arash for his next topic. And thank you guys for being so patient and coming here.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Arash. I joined MediaMarkt more than 2 years ago. I had several years of experience over Android development, and after I joined MediaMarkt, I switched to Flutter. So in today's talk, I wanted to tell you the story about the improvement of accessibility in our team and how was the process in between. So recently we realized that our app doesn't work very well with accessibility or assistive tools. So we decided to improve the experience and make it a bit better. So first, I wanted to tell you about why accessibility matters, then show you some analyzing tools to give you some hints, and then I will tell you about that what's the features available in Flutter and what's the recommendation from Flutter devs to follow. And afterward, we will see some semantics and examples in the app. And at the end, we will see accessibility testing. And at the most last, we will see that what was the biggest problem that we faced. So why accessibility matters? Around 15% of the world population suffers kind of disabilities and impairments. So these disabilities can impact and affect someone's user experience. So people cannot use your apps very good, or they cannot even do something important in your app. So we wanted to make a world better with our apps, but not for just a specific portion of the population. We want to do that for every single person. So we have some common disabilities: vision, hearing, and mobility. Hearing and mobility needs some specific devices to improve. So it's not that easy for devs without a specific devices to improve. But for vision impairments, we can easier improve, and with some pair of code blocks, we can easily improve a lot for them. So there's two approaches that you can improve your app on accessibility manner. So you have a complete app, you implemented your app, and after some time, like us, you think that it's a leftover topic, so it's better to improve now. So how we should do that, or how we can do that? It's easy to test yourself as well, but there are some tools available that you can use. And these tools, for example, on Android, there are 3 apps: Accessibility Scanner by Google, Accessibility Engine, and Accessibility Insights by Microsoft. And on iOS, there is Accessibility Inspector, which is accessible inside Xcode developer tool. So as you can see in our app, there's a page that these tools analyzed and give us some hints that, for example, tap target areas not that meet the guidelines. So it should be at least 48 dp or logical pixels, and it's lower than that currently. So these apps can give you some hints, some suggestions to improve it better. So on another hand, another part, you want to start an app from scratch. So you want to have some insight that what should we do now. Flutter supports some of the 3 concepts for following or supporting here. One of the features that Flutter supports out of the box is large font sizes. For example, if user goes to the menu, to the accessibility menu, then change the font size, or make the screen make the font size bigger, or Flutter for us automatically scale the text for us. But we can also take the control here. But how? It's a text scale factor in place. So what's the text scale factor? This is a number of font pixels for each logical pixels. For example, if user goes to that menu, change the font size, there's a callback that will be triggered. The name is on text scale factor change, then platform dispatcher, and then Flutter window. It will pass it over to the media query. So you can access the font scale factor from the media query. Why? It's important to use, for example, the UI is not well written or not having the accessibility in mind. So when the text scale factor change, you need to change the UI appropriately. So if the font size, for example, increase and you don't predict it, it will be some widget exception happens, or it's not well readable, or it's not a nice UI. So you can access the text scale factor from media query, and you can also override it, but it's not recommended because it's against the user behavior. So user wants larger font, and if you override it, so it's not a good idea. And the default value is 1 for the text scale factor, and if, for example, it's getting to 1.5, it would be 50% larger than what you set on your font size, for example, for the text widget. Another thing that's supported by screen readers are supported by Flutter are screen readers. So what are the screen readers? They communicate a spoken feedback about UI content. For example, you touch some widget in the screen, and Google Talkback and VoiceOver will read it aloud for you. And one recommendation at the end that Flutter give us to follow is sufficient contrast that you have to follow or you have to take in your mind when you choose the colors. What's the contrast? It's a background and foreground color. It's a difference between the background and foreground colors. The minimum that you should have on your text is 4.5. Currently in our UX team, they try to follow the WCAG guideline, which has some levels of contrast ratio to follow. For example, 4.5 is WCAG AA. So we are following that aspect ratio, which is 4.5. So you shouldn't be less than that, because if you go less than that, it will be not really readable, or user with vision impairment, they cannot distinguish between the boundary of the buttons, or color cannot be distinguishable. So I mentioned assistive tools like screen readers. So how is it possible in Flutter? It's because of the semantic tree. You know about widget tree, element tree, or render object tree, but we have another tree named semantic tree. It's automatically created by Flutter at the last phase of the rendering pipeline, and pipeline owner at the last stage compiles semantics and adds it to render objects. Assistive tools registers for the semantic event, and when the semantic event, how this semantic event will be triggered when the user touch, for example, one of the widget's boundaries, when the talkback is on. So when the semantic event is triggering, assistive tools which register to that event will read the text loud. But all of these are based on the semantic tree and semantic node. There is no one-to-one mapping between semantic tree and widget tree. And you can, for example, merge some of them to one node. You will have, for example, in a layer, you will have 3 widgets, but the mapping for those widgets to a specific semantic node might be just one node as a semantic node. And you also, for debugging, you have the opportunity to dump all the widget tree with this function named debug, dump semantic tree, and you will see the whole widget tree written on your IDE. So Flutter also provides some semantic widgets it's just like the normal widgets. For example, semantics is just extending the single object, single child render object widget. So it's not a fancy thing. It's just normal widgets. But what is semantics? Semantics annotates the widget tree with a description of the meaning of the widget. So it annotates and creates the semantic node. So you see that at the right, the code is for icon widget. Icon widget wrapped by semantics. You see, if you go to the build method of the semantic icon widget, you will see that icon widget is not returning from the build method. It's semantics is returning from the build method. So lots of Flutter widgets implicitly are semantic widgets. Also, some widgets provide semantics label as attribute. So when you set to true these semantic label, when you go through through its code, for example, text widget, when you go through and see the build method, you will see that if semantic label is true, it will wrap around the semantic widget will wrap around the result that comes out of the build method. Semantics widget has lots of parameters. One of the three most important are label, which is brief description of the widget, what it does. The hint explanation of the action, and the value is textual description of the widget states. For example, if you have a widget that has some state and the user with visual impairments wants to know the exact state of that widget, with the value parameter, you can read it to the user. So also semantics have a constructor. You can create a semantics widget in two way, with a normal constructor, and there's another constructor named from properties, that when you want to make a widget const, then you can use the from properties constructor. So after this slide, we go for some widgets and also some examples in our app. So what is block semantics? Block semantics drop the semantics of all widgets that were painted before. So for example, in left screen in the image, you can see it's onboarding page for MediaMarkt, but the bottom navigation can be clickable when the talkback is on. So it's not desirable for the user. User might touch this area, but something not related to this page. This is because this page created by a stack, and the painted before layer can be triggered the talkback action. So using block semantics, you can drop this semantic node to not triggered when onboarding page is shown to the user. It's painted before, so you block that layer. And also there's blocking parameter for the semantic block semantics that you can control runtime. So you can set it true or false when something happened in your UI. For example, on a slidable menu, when it comes down, you can make it true to block the behind layer, and when it opens or expand, you can make it again false. Another widget is exclude semantics. Exclude semantics drops all semantics from its descendant. Again, it has same parameter for controlling it runtime. Some widgets provide exclude semantics as a parameter, so you don't need really to wrap those widgets to exclude semantics. You can just use that value, and in the implementation of that widget, this exclude semantics drops those widgets, the child widgets for that specific widget. And for example, gesture detectors also has its own property for dropping the semantics for children, which is exclude from semantics. Exclude semantics is good for the widgets that don't have any interaction with the user. For example, a logo in some part of the page which doesn't have any interaction, it might get the touch from the user, and it's better to, if you don't want it, it's better to exclude it from the semantic node, semantic tree. What's the merge semantic? For example, you see again the onboarding page, and user before the improvement would touch when he or she touched the screen in different parts. That assistive, for example, talkback read just part of the screen, and it's hard for the user to get the whole grasp of the meaning of the whole page. So by merging all these three by one tap, user can see that what's happening on the screen. And for example, the button at the bottom would be easier to reach for the user. Those three will be packaged one, and the bottom would be just two semantic. Before the improvement, it was just four or five interaction point for the user. So yeah, for merge semantics, there's one thing to consider is that, for example, the widgets that has conflicting semantics, for example, checkbox. For example, one checkbox is true, the state is true, the other one is false. Merging those together, it's not a good thing. It's not recommended because it will pick one of them. I think the true would be picked, and this is not the right information that we want to give the user. There is one more thing, one more widget is index semantics. It's automatically added for the list views. If you go to the code, you will see that it's automatically added to items for the list view, but you can override this behavior, but add I think, yeah, add semantics indexes. You can make it false. Then, for example, in your list view, you have dividers, some items that don't want to trigger the action. For example, yeah, different views with different interaction point, but divider don't want to get any interaction. So you can override this behavior and add individually index semantics for each items in your list view. So you add all these labels, semantics, annotations to your widget tree and semantic tree. So you want to debug these labels, widgets, and yeah, after some time it's a bit hard. If you have a complex view, it's really hard. So you want to know the exact labels without touching everything, without enabling talkback, because the gestures is a bit hard to debug if it's a complex screen. So by properties which names show semantics debugger in Cupertino app and Material app, you can enable the boundaries for semantic nodes. So the labels for semantic nodes will be written on the screen. Then you can easily change some part of them without triggering any action or without enabling talkback. But all of these are for development. But yeah, for one of the most important part of the development is testing. So Flutter also provides some matches to find some semantic labels to do unit testing. One of them is find by semantic labels, that you can expect that if a specific label is there in the widget when you do the widget testing or not. And another one would be MIT guideline matcher. With these MIT guidelines, you can pass some guidelines, provided guidelines to this matcher, and the whole widget can be tested when you do the widget testing. For example, if you have the text contrast guideline in place, when it's different than the guideline, the widget test would be failed. For example, you will add there, for example, tappable area, which should be 48 pixels. When it's, for example, 38 pixels, it will be it will be failed. The test will be failed. Then you know that you have to do something for that. And you can see some of the guidelines provided by Flutter, which are label tap target guideline, enforces all nodes with a tap action should have a label text contrast guideline, traverse semantic tree, and checks background and foreground contrast ratio of text, editable text. Android tap target guideline and iOS tap target guideline request tappable semantic nodes, a minimum size of 48 by 48 for Android, and for iOS, I think it's 44. So it's different, but it's good when you do widget testing, put these guidelines as well on your test to not mistakenly or have less tap target areas. What was our biggest problem? We noticed that because we are a hybrid app, we have some native Flutter views and then some web views as well. We try to make it better, but it takes time. But yeah, we have web views, and one of the most important is product web view, product page. So we noticed that before, nobody that turned the talkback on could do add to basket. So the patches wasn't possible. So our app wasn't accessible at all. Why was this happened? Because WebView relied on platform views to embed Android WebView. And previously, it was using virtual displays. And this problem was just for Android, because iOS, it's enabled by default that use the native WebView itself in Flutter. So what's virtual displays? On virtual displays, platform view renders Android view instance to a texture. So the Android activity view hierarchy would be dropped and cannot be delivered to Flutter. So semantic tree and semantic nodes cannot be created well. So because there is no semantic node, there is no action, so it wasn't possible to add to button can trigger an action when talkback is on. But after Flutter 1.22, they introduced hybrid composition. Hybrid composition appends the native view to the view hierarchy. So the hierarchy comes back and semantic nodes works as expected. So when we turned hybrid composition on for our web view, the problem's gone. User can use the app again when talkback is on. So everything's fine. But one of the problems is now we enable it for API versions, I think Android version 10 plus, API version 28 plus. So still we have some problems, but at least it's better now for the latest Android version, because it's not recommended to enable hybrid composition for Android less than 10, because it has some performance issue. And that was it. Hope you find accessibility. Thank you. And is there any question regarding accessibility? Yeah.
Compared to native development, because you said that you were Android developer.
Yeah, but not. Yeah, accessibility was a leftover topic on Android.
Okay, but I mean, as far as you can see in Flutter, like, do you see any like blocking points in accessibility?
The most blocking point for us, or at least my experience, was exactly the platform views. For example, the web view example was like this problem happened, and I think Google Map has the same problem, because it's again platform view. But other than that, I didn't find anything very big difference from Android and Flutter in between for accessibility. But accessibility is kind of leftover topic for devs, and we should take care more for those portion of the population. Hope answered.
Just at which point do you start introducing accessibility into your application? So like, do you focus on having a mature application first and then start introducing accessibility, or do you focus on accessibility first and then?
Unfortunately, I focus.
Sorry, for the online, I think I get the question.
Okay. Can you repeat it again? So online audition can also.
Yeah, I was just wondering, since usually time is not, like you don't have a lot of time to develop things, at which point do you start focusing on accessibility versus, actual development of the features and all these things?
Thank you. So unfortunately, we realized at the last phase, not last phase, we had an MVP to restructure the whole app from the legacy app to a new Flutter app. So we started first to implement the most important parts, and then we realized that it's not accessible. So it's not that bad that we now doing the accessibility things, because with the small things we can improve a lot, we can impact a lot with just wrapping some or changing some part of the app, not the whole thing change. But it's nicer to think at the first place, but it's also possible at the last. So for example, for the MVP, it's possible to move it at the last phase, but it's better to start from the beginning.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for your talk. It's really nice. I agree with that. The accessibility is one of the mandatory stuff that should be included in every application. And we had a discussion with my friends that sometimes it's quite difficult to explain to your manager that like we need to add accessibility stuff, because like we can't do like whatever we want. And could you give any recommendation how to explain to the manager that, I don't know, we need to spend, for example, 10% of hours to introduce accessibility to our application?
Thank you. So it started first with a tech talk. We're regularly doing the tech talks in our team, and in the process of the gaining more experience on accessibility and learning more in the team in Flutter, we realized that we have a flaws in experience. It's not good for even business, because lots of people couldn't do purchase when you have visual impairments. It wasn't possible to do that. So we introduce the problems, we show the problem, and after that tech talk, it was an interesting topic for it got very interesting for even the UX part, because it wasn't very well or it wasn't raised the concern before. So after that tech talk and after some talks with the management, UX management, it's getting obvious that we need to improve. And after some time, we decided that this is the time, we have the time, so it's better to improve now. And then we started to improve things better. So if you show, for example, just turn the talk back on, turn your eyes off, and see what happens. Can you go through your app or not? So if you do the same with your manager and tell him that or her that, can you use the app this way? Maybe it makes sense for them as well.
So to be fair, I forgot to mention at the beginning, there is a chat in the online. So please feel free to make questions in the chat, and Ricardo will make the questions live. Wait, who was it?
Thank you for your talk. I have a question. So currently you implemented accessibility, so it works. But how much effort does it take to edit already? And also, so you have, for example, you develop a new widget, and now you need to also, apart of visual side, right? You need to add some semantic labels. And how much does it increase work time on adding accessibility on top? Thank you.
Thank you. So the effort wasn't that big for a huge code base because we divided to some steps. So we make it separate with different tickets. It's still yet not published. So if you go to MediaMarkt, enable talkback, the same problems that I showed you, it will pops up because the improvements is another branch and it's not yet merged and not yet it's merged to develop, but it's not yet released. It's our next version that will be released and it will be improved. But we do it in steps. So we did first the most important part, which was web view, the labels for the bottom navigation, all the interaction that leads the user to a wrong direction for the business, and also from the sensibility of that page. So we first improved those area, but not went deeper. For example, each widget have to have the, for example, labels. So we do it step by step because also business have requirements. We lack of resources sometimes, and it's not the way that we always do. For example, in a sprint, accessibility improvements. We separated the tickets, then we do in a slack times kind of, and not the whole focus is on accessibility, but we do it in different tickets.
Yes, so the online audience would like to know if you are aware of any known problems with accessibility in Flutter for web, basically. Sorry? Accessibility for Flutter for web.
Unfortunately, our main focus was on Android and iOS, so there isn't any. I think there shouldn't be, or better to not mention it because it's out of our expertise. So sorry to not answering that.
Hello. How do you deal with animations? How do you make animations accessible?
Honestly, we didn't change anything regarding the semantics for animation, but if the widget has a specific semantics, I think when you press that specific part that is in transition in the animation, it won't trigger any action until it goes to the last step of that widget. When it's going to the last step, I think you can do something about it. But in transition, I'm not sure about, and we didn't implement anything regarding that. For example, we just have animation on the splash screen, and on that part, it wasn't that important for us. So we drop some of we exclude some of the semantics from the semantic widget, and then handle it like no animation. So, but it's an interesting topic to investigate more.
Yeah, I'm more interested about how you structure with the widgets. I'm thinking about the previous talk that you have this component view package. So how do you structure? Do you put the semantics in each component, or do you have another way to do it? Thank you.
Thank you. For example, for some of the semantic labels, some of the widgets that provide semantic labels its own constructor. So we had to just pass the semantic label. So in the component library, we just provide extra properties as semantic label. We just pass through as a nullable argument because it shouldn't be mandatory, it shouldn't be required. We just pass through the component library the label that it needs, not wrapping the whole widget inside the component library. We don't wrap it into a semantic label, but it's different. For example, widget to widget, it's different. Sometimes we need to exclude something even in the component library, but we also can pass around the labels from the layer, the business layer to our component library, but not wrapping everything with the semantic widget. Thank you very much. Hand over to Vince.
Hey, my name is Vince, and I'm a software developer at MediaMarkt, and I'm also the host of the Flutter 101 podcast and the organizer of the Flutter Munich meetup groups. And today I would like to talk about how our null safety migration went. And as a first step, I would like to thank you all for attending the event, also for those of you who are listening online, and also for the people who helped organizing the event from the community, and as well as the streaming and everything. So thank you for that. And yeah, just a quick intro to MediaMarkt. So MediaMarkt is basically a consumer electronics retail company, and I think one of the things that makes it like a challenging business, because we have physical stores and also like a web shop. We are also online, and we are also in many different countries. So one of the biggest markets for us is Germany, Austria, Spain, but we are also in Italy, Netherlands, Hungary, and also Sweden, and a couple of more. And yes, so currently in some countries, MediaMarkt is already using Flutter. We had a couple of issues with the native Android and iOS development, like the usual suspects that you couldn't have the same resources, or you couldn't get the same talented developers on Android and iOS. They don't speak the same language. Some patterns are more important for Android developers than for iOS developers. And then you also need to reach like feature parity ideally, but it's very difficult to balance two teams. So that's why we gave Flutter a try. And currently we like our mobile applications are running Flutter in 4 sales lines. So in Germany, Austria, and Spain for MediaMarkt. And in Germany, there's also Saturn, which is like a second brand. And we are planning to add more and more countries because we want to have like every country should be running Flutter at some point. Of course, we also depend on other teams, web teams, so we cannot do it all in one go, but we try to add more and more countries so that we can share the code base. Currently, we have around 250,000 daily active users. It's fluctuating, of course, so now maybe so now probably we have more than that during the Black Friday and Black Week. And yeah, we have around 10 developers. We try to get the juniors also give them more experience and upscale them. And like just a code base, it's around 100,000 plus lines of code. It's not the main focus, but it's just kind of to show what we had to basically migrate. So as a start, I want to share some of the null safety principles. So the first one is that everything is, if you have null safety, then everything will be non-nullable by default. So if a variable can contain null, then you need to be explicit about it, and you need to basically say that, okay, this variable can now contain null. So this is the sensible default value, because most often when you are writing applications, then when you declare a variable, it should not be null, like more often than not. So that's why it makes sense to make it the default. And with null safety, this will be the default. I will give a very, very short introduction to null safety. It's based on the null safety code lab, but like you can also just
take 20 minutes or 30 minutes and go through the Null Safety Code Lab. I will not mention a lot of things that are in the code lab. So just to, like, it's 3 examples that I will share, because I think most people are already familiar with this. It's a feature that landed in stable in March, but just in case you are not, just a quick intro. So as I mentioned, non-nullable by default. So with null safety, this code will no longer compile because in line 2, we have a variable int of type integer. And because like by default, it will be non-nullable. So on line 3, you cannot assign a null value to it anymore. So to fix that, you add the question mark. This is the part where you basically need to be explicit about some value being nullable. And then the error goes away and the code runs as usual. The other thing that I wanted to show is this example. Here we have a list that could hold null values as well. So it's an integer or null values can be in this list. And you can also see the question mark on the in the list generic type argument. So there are many places where you can put question marks. But in this case, we have a list that could hold null values. And if for some reason you as a developer know that the first value, for example, is not going to be a null value for some reason, then you can basically override Dart's very pessimistic approach, because Dart is very pessimistic. If it suspects that some value can be null, then it will complain. And in this case, it's very reasonable because the list type is nullable, a list of nullable integer, nullable int. And the first item of that list could also maybe null. And so Dart added the null assertion operator, which is on line 4 after first. This is basically an exclamation mark, which basically Dart lets you tell the Dart system that you are doing things at your own risk, and please don't bother me. You know what you are doing. This is not, the first item is not going to be null. And basically that's one thing that Dart lets you do. Just as a comment, I think it's already a code smile. So maybe if you need to do it often, you should maybe think a little bit about this. But just to illustrate the point and the usage of the null assertion operator, I wanted to show this example. The other example that I wanted to show is the type promotion. So in this example, we have a function called getLength that accepts a nullable string, like a argument. And here, the Dart type system will basically let you know that this is not good. You cannot access the length of the str on line 2 because it can also be null, and null.length, it doesn't really make sense. So for this case, of course, there are many ways to fix it. Like you could use question marks, double question marks. I mean, you could, but basically the thing that I wanted to demonstrate is the type promotion. And the way it happens is that you basically check for a null value, and then you return early from the function, or you could also throw. It would behave the same way. And because in line 2, you checked already for the null value, then Dart will know that on line 4, the str cannot be null. It's going to be a string. It won't be null. So that's just the couple of things that I wanted to share. And you might already see that it helps you turn runtime errors into analysis errors. And this is very important because like analysis errors, you can fix in seconds because you make a mistake and then you notice in your IDE the red squiggly lines, and then you fix it, and pretty much done. But what happens if you leave a runtime error in your code? So then you basically release the app, go through the publishing process on the app stores, notice hopefully that something, hopefully you notice that something went wrong in your crash reporting tool, and then you need to find and fix the bug. And also maybe that already someone else is going to fix it because the person who introduced the bug, maybe it was 2 weeks ago or whatever, and then someone has to fix it, and then release the app again. So depending on your processes and priorities, having a runtime error and fixing it, it can take days or maybe even weeks. And it's very different with analysis errors, because then you can fix those errors basically in seconds. The other thing is that the Dart type system is fully sound. So when the type system determines that something cannot be null, then that thing can never be null. And that's why runtime null checking is no longer necessary, and more of the heavy lifting happens at compile time. And the compiler can get rid of unnecessary checks and everything. So long story short is that you will have basically smaller binaries and your apps will run faster. The last no safety principle that is very important for all applications that were written before null safety is that it's incrementally adaptable. So you can run non-null safe code alongside with null safe code. And so basically that's why we decided to migrate, because it's less code. The code is also more clear. It's clearer. And we let the type system validate what it can. We don't leave this up to humans because it's very error prone. You might not notice it. And so if the type system can validate it, then the type system should take care of it, and we should not leave this up to humans. Of course, it's also nice to have smaller and faster apps. Another thing that is important for us, that we keep up with the community and the ecosystem. Of course, usually later versions of packages have more features, they are more stable, they are faster. So we want to keep up with the community and the ecosystem. And also, I think it might not sound like it's so important, but I think it also makes the PR reviews much easier, because we don't bug each other that, okay, you forgot a cert null check here, you forgot the at required there. So I think it's also a nice bonus. We also had a couple of constraints for our null safety migration, and also based on these constraints, the requirements. So we wanted to have the code reviewed when we merge it. So we didn't want to just let someone change everything, close their eyes, and deploy to production. We want the code to be reviewed. We also didn't want a code freeze, because we always have basically requirements changing or bugs to be fixed. So we couldn't really afford the code freeze. And we are a team of 10-ish developers, and we didn't want to basically dedicate the whole team to this migration, because, as I mentioned, we want to deliver features and fix bugs. And that's why most of the time so at the beginning we had 2 developers working on it, then 1, and in the last months maybe we kind of had to focus on finishing up everything for Black Friday, and then we didn't have anyone working on this. And we wanted to merge to our main branch often, and we wanted to let people write no safe code, but it's also fine if you need to fix something and it's a big file. We also wanted to basically allow that. So we thought about migration. Our expectations were that we just follow the migration guide, which is a very good migration guide, but unfortunately it didn't really work out so easily for us. So the expectation was that, okay, you just run this command, automatically upgrade all the dependencies, then run the Dart migrate command, which is an interactive migration tool that you can run in the browser. You can tweak things, and in the end, it will convert your null unsafe code and turns it to null safe code. And then you run your pipeline, you run your tests, and enjoy. It didn't really work out that way for us, and also to many others. So I ran an unscientific Reddit poll, basically asking, how did your null safety migration go? And 32% said that they either needed more than 1 month to do the migration and they migrated gradually, or they decided not to migrate at all. So it's basically 1/3 of the people who answered said that, okay, I needed at least 1 month, or I didn't want to migrate at all. Of course, this is an unscientific poll. There will be, someone from the Dart team mentioned that there will be, this will be asked in the next quarterly Flutter survey. And yeah, just wanted to share this. For the incremental migration, one very important thing is the unsound null safety. So this means that your dependencies are null safe, and also maybe some of your files are unsafe. So some are safe and some aren't. And this way you can keep the pull requests small. But of course, it also introduces a risk that nulls can sneak into your null safe code from your non-null safe code. There are also alternatives. If you have smaller projects, or you don't need like code review from others, you like as a solo developer, you control everything, then you can just start a migration and finish whenever you finish. Or also for small projects, it can really like, you can do it by hand, or let the migration tool do that. It really depends on how big your project is. I think for also it's worth considering, even for larger projects, to basically let the migration tool run, apply the changes, and clean up later. It's fast. It's not what we decided, but it would be like fast, and maybe you could argue that it's not much worse than before. But in my opinion, it also gives a false sense of security. And also the migration tool adds a lot of unnecessary null assertion operators, and it's also impossible to review. So if someone just gives me a pull request with thousands of files changed, I don't know, it would be hard to review. Some of the things that we learned, of course, it's always true, merge often, keep the delta, the difference between your migration branch and the main branch small by merging often. It only works if your team is also ready to review often. So if I open a pull request every day, then someone has to review it at least in a reasonable amount of time. Also, you don't need to migrate every dependency yourself, even if it looks like the dependency wasn't migrated. So of course, the first thing when you migrate the project, is that you check pub.dev. You also need to pay special attention to the pre-releases, because maybe the null-safe version is not in stable, but it's in pre-release. You can also ask the maintainers, maybe they are already working on it. I have a smaller package that basically someone asked me if I could update it, and it was really like in like a 10-minute work, and I updated it. So you can also ask the maintainers. It can also help, and maybe the maintainers are missing in action. They don't care about their packages anymore. Then you can still check the pull requests or the forks to the project, because maybe the maintainers don't care anymore, but someone from the community already forked it and did the migration. So that's also very handy. And of course, you can also look for alternative packages, because it's never a good sign if a dependency, like if a package wasn't touched or updated or migrated to null safety in almost a year. So one example, there was a package called flashbar, and someone created another flashbar. It's called another flashbar. And I think, so just pay attention to those. And really, as a last resort, fork it and migrate it yourself. Just two code examples I want to show quickly is that only local variables can be promoted. So we have a foo here that has a property called a. It's a nullable string. And on line 7, we check, okay, is foo.a null, not null? And if it's not null, we want to do something. In this case, we just print it, but Dart will complain about it. And I think it's not very intuitive why this happens. And I wanted to explain why this happens. So in Dart, you can basically override this and create a getter and then once you created the getter, you can do any kinds of silly stuff. Which, I mean, of course, this is one more example where Dart is very pessimistic. It's not something that you would like to see in your code, but it's possible. So that's why Dart is pessimistic, and it will not let this go through. And in this case, you can create, basically, to fix this issue, you can introduce a local variable, and then this will be promoted because the getter will be only called once, and then, yes. There is a good Dart docs about fixing type promotion failures. I recommend you check it out if you need to add null safety to your project. Another thing I wanted to mention is that you should prefer type promotions to null, to the null assertion operator. So in this case, we sort of the similar story. We have a foo with two properties, A and B. They are both nullable strings. And then without local variables, you would maybe write something like on line 11 that you check for foo.a is not null. And if it's not null, then you add the null assertion operator, which will basically silence the Dart error. But I think I don't recommend this because what happens if you, for example, need to update this code, then you need to remember to update this in both places. So in this example, on line 12, I updated it to B because for some, just as an example, then the null check will not check the correct value, but I added the null assertion operator, which basically silences a very legitimate error. And in this case, it will cause a runtime error. And way to fix it is to basically introduce a local variable. It's a line longer, but it's safe. And just two things more. We use Mockito for our unit tests, and we just basically replace it with Mocktail. We have taken a look at this document, and it was like, oh my God, this doesn't look too good. And then this is when we really, I mean, we already knew about Mocktail, but this is when we took another look at Mocktail, and we realized that, okay, this is much closer to the original Mockito versions, and it's going to be much less work. So we just dropped Mockito, and we are using now Mocktail. Last thing is that imperfect code will stand out more with null safety. So if you didn't handle null previously correctly, then what do you do now? You have a couple of options. Maybe use the null assertion operator in case like it worked before. It should still work now, kind of. Or maybe you need to think when you return null, when you throw, but then you also need to keep in mind that Dart doesn't have checked exceptions. Another approach would be like using the either class from, it basically means that it's either a value or an error, or just, I don't know, take a deeper look and try to handle the missing cases better. For that, I wanted to mention one last example. For GraphQL, we don't yet. We want to introduce Artemis, which is a code generator based on your GraphQL schema. And then you don't need, like, it basically takes care of all the possible null values with much less code. And this is like one thing that we want to still do. And yes, if you have any questions, either like anywhere. Oh, okay, now we.
Thank you. I have a question. Do you have some metrics or data how your application change, amount of bugs after migration, developer happiness, development velocity? Is it changed somehow?
I think the short version is I don't know. I don't think so. Like we didn't really measure this. It's a small team, so measuring it, I wouldn't even know how to measure it exactly. Like developer happiness. I don't know. We are happy. I'm sorry. I don't think we have good data on that. it just kind of like gut feeling, like we don't waste that much time with the pull reviews because we don't need to pay attention to nullable things. But that's not something we like scientifically measured, that we have less pull request comments. I don't know. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, then I think, then thank you, everyone.
Okay, so I think we are coming to an end to tonight's event. Already in the event closer, and the raffle, of course. First of all, thank you very much to the three speakers that came today. I think they did a great effort to try to synthesize and catch your interest. I hope you found the three topics interesting. We have also a survey, so you will soon let us know what was most interesting to you. Okay. What else? I just want to take 1 minute to talk about MediaMarkt and why are we today hosting, together with the Flutter Spain community, this event here in Barcelona. Okay. You know, MediaMarkt is a German company. It's in 14 countries of Europe. Most of we are dedicated to the consumer electronics, and probably you have seen some advertisement in the news, I'm pretty sure, and even more now in Black Friday. What you might not know is how are we doing technology at MediaMarkt? Okay, it's a German company, of course, so we have our headquarters in Ingolstadt, very close to Munich. There is around more than 500, between 500 internal developers, maybe 200 externals, people working, engineers and programmers. And also now in Barcelona, we are bringing engineering capacity to do developments for the whole group. Okay, you probably, if you listen to the news, every week you hear this company, blah, blah, is opening a TechHUB in Barcelona. This other company, we are not an exception. Okay, so since June this year, we officially launched what we call the Barcelona TechHUB, MediaMarkt TechHUB. Our intention is to have 12 product teams working here. It's not only Flutter, so we have other technologies. We have a front-end development for our corporate e-commerce. We have some back solutions like our ERP, SAP, BI, quality assurance. We will have some agile coaches, and that's it. And of course, we will have here a couple of teams working for the consumer app that together with Flutter, 2 teams in Spain, 3 teams in Germany. This is our target picture. We are not there yet. We are just starting. Our idea is MediaMarkt Barcelona TechHUB to be around 65 people by March 2020. And what does that mean? It means that we are hiring, okay? So if you have interest, please contact us. And if not, but as you are part of the tech community of this great city, please spread the word and let your colleagues know that we are looking for talent, okay? I think we have a really, really great challenge. We are artisans. We like to try things. We have fun with what we do. So you are welcome to onboard. Okay, thanks for that. And now we will go to the raffle. So just that you know how is the dynamics, we have some prizes for everyone, also for the online attendees. And then we will do a second lottery for the people that you came here, even if it's raining. How are the dynamics? We have an application, so I would suggest you to take your phones. Okay. And it's 3 minutes. It's you will see a link or a QR. I will encourage you to use the link. It's a short link and an access code. You put there. It's a small survey. You have 3 minutes to complete it, and then we will see who are the winners. In the first of the raffle, we suggest, so we will give you access to free Flutter codes, but my colleague said they are pretty interesting. So we are gonna start right now. So you heard the dynamics. It's 3 minutes since I click, and I'm clicking. Okay, the time starts. Please go to this site, easypromos.live, and enter the code 167. It's 3 minutes. Time is clicking. It's pretty simple. You put your full name. Okay, there was quick people answering. MediaMarkt colleagues, you are not supposed to play. Great. Okay. I see some of you didn't put the full name. So if you put a code instead of your name, just save the screen so we know who you are. If you are a winner, we won't have your name. Already 44 participants. 54. 56, 58. It's going fast. Sixty-two participants already. 1 minute left. Anyone with issues? Hurry up. 40 seconds. Thirty seconds left. 65 participants. I think everyone did it already. Ten seconds. 67 participants. 68. There's people that took his time. Okay. Time's up. So here are the results of the 3 questions that you answered. First of all, what is the Flutter experience level of today's audience? Cool. So we have 11 participants that never used it. It's never late, just start. Just starting 26, and the 47% of the people here are experienced. Apparently, there is no one that started from the very, very beginning with Flutter. Good. Let's see the second question. Which is the most interesting topic for you? Okay. Surprising. So modularization 26, so 40% on the modularization, 27 on accessibility, and still 37% on the null safety migration. And the last question, would you repeat to future MediaMarkt's TechHUB event? Oh, okay. I'm kind of glad. 50% of the people would repeat. The remaining 38% would kind of repeat with 7 yes, and there is always place for improve. So I hope next time we will do better. Thanks for that. And now the winners. There's no trick. 69 participants at the end and 3 winners. 3 to 1. Okay, first winner, Alex, the number 11. Tim Geisler, number 48. And a long name, Miguel Caraballo. We will send you a voucher to the course. I hope you like the present. And wait. And now for the people that came here, we have free giveaways. You can see them here. Similar dynamics, but you don't need to use your mobile phone. We know the attendees because you are registered. Let's see. Directly the winners. 39 people here in the room. 3 to 1, I think it's direct result. Let's see. The Google Nest Mini for Claudia. Raise your hand. Raul Mateo, the Google Chromecast. And Adrian Cates, the Nest Hub. So thank you very much. That's all. We go now for the beers. I hope you can stay and we can chat a little bit. And of course, I saw lots of questions. Sorry. Please wake up. Sorry. The 3 winners, can you come here? Yes. I think you got this one. Yes, that's for you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy. You are?
Claudia.
And you were, let's see, Claudia, Google Nest Mini, 2nd generation. It's this for you? Raul Mateo, that's for you. Thank you very much. So I was already saying we are over. I hope you enjoy. We will send the video link to all of you, to the online attendees, and as all the ones you were here. And thank you very much. See?